Namaste everyone. I welcome you all to today's Yes Talk titled Finding Your Passion. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Pankaj Lal. I would like to share a quick introduction for him. Pankaj is a fitness and sports enthusiast. After quitting the corporate sector in 2010, he started focusing on health and began running long distances from 10-kilometer runs to marathons to 75-kilometer ultra marathons. Pankaj has even trekked and climbed in the Everest region. He has also worked in the non-profit sector for around 5 years, which he found very satisfying. Over the last 6 years, Pankaj has been training adults and children to help them in their fitness journey. We welcome you, Pankaj sir. Thank you so much for joining Yes Talks today, and look forward to an interesting session with you. Over to you.
Thanks, Arunima. Am I clear enough? Is my
Yes,
voice clear?
yes, please
Sorry,
go
I've
ahead.
got a slightly sore throat, but thank you, Arunima, and thanks to Ramesh Uncle for inviting me to talk a little about my journey. Um, yes, as Arunima mentioned, over the last few years, I've been working with adults and children in helping their fitness journey. But my own journey has been quite different, and I could perhaps start with my school days. I used to be a very active sports person in school. I think part of it is credited to my genes. I think my father was a good sportsman back in his younger days, and my other two uh, sportsmen. So I really enjoyed sports. I was very active in it, in track and field events, sprinting especially. I really used to love running fast. I've had asthma since childhood, and though it's much less now, but back then during my school days, I used to find it hard to run long distances because of my asthma. So my breathing was quite short. So, but running fast, I would say up to 200 meters, I was able to run fast, and so I really enjoyed that, the feeling of running fast. And along with that, I really loved field events like long jump, triple jump, high jump, and other sports as well. Like I was pretty good at football, volleyball. So, so I was really passionate about sports back then. And academically, I wasn't like amongst the top, but I was somewhere in the middle. Did reasonably well in school. So yeah, my college started around 1997, and that's when fitness started to take a backseat. I think initially the pressure was to get into a reasonably good college. So and once so I studied in Kirodimal College in Delhi, and because my father also was from a corporate sector, so there was some amount of pressure in terms of getting into a reasonably good college and getting a good course. So I was able to get into maths, and did BA in mathematics, and it was very theoretical. The maths that I was studying, I didn't really enjoy it at all, and so and always the pressure was to sort of do enough to pass the exams. So this was, of course, for 3 years, and I was able to get I think a first class it was called. But just barely. So I was able to get by in college, and then, of course, pressure was to then do an MBA. My father was pretty senior in corporate sector, and by then my brother, who was 3 years older to me, was also pursuing an MBA and getting ready to enter the corporate field. So so yeah, the pressure was there to again get into an MBA, and so I got into a reasonably okay college, and I think my ability to also manage stress was very, very limited. So I used to get stressed quite easily. So 2 years of MBA was pretty hard, and sports fitness kept going back and back. I was just not able to focus on it. And once my MBA got over, I was again sort of into the rat race of finding a good reputed job. So finally, in 2000, I think three it was, I got a job in Bombay with a Canadian bank, and it was through my dad's help actually that I was able to get this job. Like my father knew someone who was one of the bank's clients, and they put in a word. So that's how I was able to get my job. So it didn't really do too well for my self-worth. Though I've always been quite sincere in what I do, but because I think my father was quite keen on me sort of following him in the corporate sector. So he used to try from his own side, wherever he could get a recommendation into. So I think from his side, he was trying to be a good father, but my own self-image or self-esteem um, wasn't that high. So so 2003 was this job that I joined. It was a small Canadian bank in Mumbai. So I moved to Mumbai, and totally new place, new people. I hardly knew anyone there. So my office was in Nariman Point there, and I got a small sort of a paying guest accommodation, and moved in there. And it was really hard, that part. I didn't have a great boss. My immediate boss sort of knew that I had been recommended into getting this job. So I think he held some kind of a negative opinion about me, that I wasn't good enough. So my relationship with him wasn't great. And I remember the first day when I joined, the branch head, or one of the most senior people who had helped me get the job, he called me into his room and told me that, "Oh, don't mention it to anyone that you've come here through Sifarish." So it didn't make me feel good at all. So so this was in 2003, and um, but I think the quality that I had was that I was very sincere towards my work. So I worked hard, really hard, and sometimes I feel to a point which was not so healthy for me. I used to take on more stress than that was required, and I was finding it difficult to manage the stress. So in 2003, my cousin brother moved to Bombay, and he used to smoke. So he, along with his friends, roughly my age only, they used to smoke a lot. So because I didn't have any sort of social network there or any friends. So I used to, after office, used to go and meet them. And one day I also picked up the cigarette from them and started smoking. So this was 2003, and immediately, I think within a few days, I was hooked onto it, and it became a regular feature to after work go and meet them, and in Kolaba, there are lots of nice pubs, so we used to go and sit and smoke there, and side by side drinking also started to happen. So yeah, I think, and definitely being an asthmatic since childhood, smoking was really really bad for me. So, but I didn't really care at that time. I was in my 20s, so I think with smoking, um, it gave me that temporary sort of relief from stress, but it was very short lived till the time I needed another cigarette, and it was just like that. I was totally hooked and not able to control it at all. And I used to easily smoke 10 or 12 cigarettes a day, and over the weekends, even 20 cigarettes. So it was something that I was really, really hooked onto. And in the back of my mind, I wanted to give it up, and I made several attempts also to try and sort of give it up. Um, I remember a couple of times I fell ill, and I thought, okay, maybe now is a good time to try and give it up. But eventually, even after a few days, I was back to smoking on it. So that was something that I really struggled. And so this went on. So I was there in Mumbai for about 4 years till 2007. And then I decided to move back to Delhi and joined a different bank here in Delhi, and worked here till 2010. So I was doing fairly well for myself because I used to work hard, but at the same time, I was, because of the smoking, drinking, no exercise, I was constantly under a lot of stress. Physically, I wasn't feeling good at all. I had no strength in me, and put on weight as well, and just leading a really, really unhealthy life. Um, on the face of it, um, like I was working with a private bank, I had gotten promoted. All that was going well. Like I was earning a good salary. All that was going well, but my health was really deteriorating, and the stress was constantly there. So, in 2009, just a few months into 2000, 2010, I had gotten promoted, and I was just not able to manage the extra responsibilities that were given to me after my promotion. And within a few months, I just one day just went and resigned. I didn't even tell my parents because the stress had become too much for me. And I just went one day and just resigned, put in my papers, and got back home, and then I told my parents, and they were pretty shocked that what had happened suddenly. And though they had seen me that I'd been under a lot of stress, but it was a big thing for them also, that I just resigned without having any other job in the back, but the it was like really I had reached a point wherein I couldn't manage. So this was 2010, and resigning from Axis Bank, which was in Delhi, was probably the turning point of my health. Um, I remember I resigned from Axis Bank, and it was the same day or the day around it when I decided to quit smoking as well. Also, I had an episode when one day I had been smoking and I got a sharp pain in my chest. And that really scared me that, I need to do something about this. So, quitting the corporate sector really helped me to sort of uh, um, reduce that stressful environment around me, and helped me to give up smoking. So, it was, I think, 15th August 2010, if I remember correctly, was the last day I smoked. So about 13 years back. And that was the turning point, as I said, for me to um, start taking care of my health. And so within a few months of quitting smoking, I had left my job, so I had a few months before I joined my next assignment. So I decided to trek to Everest Base Camp. This was, I think, about 7 or 8 months after I had quit smoking. So back in my school days, I, along with my friends, had done a few treks to Pindari Glacier and Minkyani Pass. Two, three treks we had done, but this Everest Base Camp is at a high altitude. It's almost 18,000 feet. So this was going to be a very challenging trek. So, but since I had gotten away from that stressful environment, I was able to think more freely and really wanted to push myself a little bit. So I found out about the trek as much as I could. A family friend of ours had been on that trek, so I got all the information from him and started preparing a little bit for it. Still, I was in not because I had 7 years of smoking behind me till then. I wasn't in great shape, so it took me a while to get my strength back. So the first year I went to Everest Base Camp, that was I think in April of 2011. So I was able to reach base camp. It's a 14-day trek. Point to point from Delhi to getting back into Delhi. It's a 2-week trek. So I was able to do it. I was able to reach Everest Base Camp, which was, I felt so happy doing that. And for me, the mountains are very, very special. I feel very, for me, there's a pull in the mountains that I feel very close to them whenever I see mountains. So it was a magical experience for me, especially trekking and seeing Everest, seeing the peak, the top of it, which is literally up in the heavens. It's so high. So it was a magical experience, life-changing event for me. And I always tell people that whoever is fond of trekking, you should definitely try and trek to Everest Base Camp to see Everest. So this was in 2011, and I got back from the trek feeling very, very happy that I was able to do this trek, get so high, and this made me more motivated to continue to push my physical abilities. So the next year, 2012 and 2013, I returned back to the Everest area and attempted climbing a peak called Island Peak, which is around 6,200 meters, so about 20,000 feet. On both, I made two attempts on successive years, and both were unsuccessful events. Like I couldn't summit it, but I reached very close in the second attempt, especially. I think I crossed 6,000 meters, just 200 meters short of the summit. So though there was some little bit of disappointment that I couldn't make it to the summit, but it was a very, very satisfying experience that I was able to push myself physically to do these climbs. And by then I had stopped smoking. I lost excessive weight that I was carrying. I was exercising regularly and feeling good about myself. So simultaneously, after leaving the banking sector, within a few months, I joined um, this non-profit organization called Teach for India, which works for, this was in 2011, which works for the education of underprivileged children. So I was placed in a government school for a period of two years. This was from 2011 to 2013, wherein I helped class 2 kids. So I had 30 children in my class, and my job was to teach them English and maths. I did that for a period of 2 years. So the same set of kids then went into class 3. So I was their English and maths teacher for period of 2 years, and it was a very, very rewarding journey, being their teacher. And when I look back at it, I think it was even more challenging to work with them as compared to my banking job, because there was a lot of responsibility, as well as it's very demanding to manage a set of 30 children. They're all at different levels, so how to help the ones who are a bit more behind, and it was very, very challenging. So, but it was very rewarding for me. And I think for me, I've inside, like within my heart, I think I've always liked to help people. It gives me a lot of satisfaction to be of some kind of service. So, so it was, yeah, very, very satisfying. And after that, I joined another NGO called Genesis Foundation, which helps to provide medical treatment, raise funds to provide for the medical treatment of critically ill kids from underprivileged families. So my job there was to help to raise funds. So I was there for about 2.5 or 3 years up till 2015. Again, it was a hard job because raising funds is very, very difficult, but it was very rewarding that to be able to be of service to these critically ill children, to be able to raise funds so that they could get treatment. So, so, and the other, I think, aspect of being working with these nonprofits was that there was no pressure as such. So I got adequate time to focus on myself physically, which was very important for me to manage my stress and generally of my mental happiness. I was able to get the time for that. I was not constantly working. There was enough time for me to exercise regularly. So that was, I think, a really big benefit. Yes, monetarily, I was earning lesser than what I used to earn, but it was enough for me to live comfortably. And also, family, there was family support in terms of financially. So I didn't have to worry about money as such. So that was a big blessing for me. And like I said, I was able to get enough time to exercise. So I was leading a more balanced life. And so sometime in 2015 was, or even before that, I had started running, running again. And because by that time I was in my late 30s, sprinting had gone out of the window, which I used to love back in school. But and being an asthmatic, I wasn't able to run fast, but I used to run slowly. And gradually, I realized that running slowly, I was able to control my breathing, and I was able to do it regularly. And I found that my stamina had started to increase. So in 2015, I decided to run a 10-kilometer race. And in fact, the picture which was there right before in the presentation, that picture of mine is from that first 10-kilometer race that I did in 2015. And that was in the month of August. And in Gurgaon, on a very rough trail, in just the Aravali region, there are a few trails that are very rough up and down. So I decided to sign up for this race, and it was extremely hot. It was in the month of August, but I was able to finish that 10-kilometer run. I think I was second last to finish it, but I didn't care. I was just so proud of my achievement that being a heavy smoker earlier for so many years and being able to do all these and being an asthmatic, to be able to run 10 kilometers I felt so happy doing it. So that was the start of my endurance journey along, I think. So, and then 2015 is also the year, sorry, 2013 is when I got married as well. So it was difficult for me to make long trips to Nepal for trekking, but running running sort of long distances took over. That was the highest sort of I used to get from these endurance events. So after this 10-kilometer run, I started training, and I did my first half marathon sometime in 2016, which was a 21-kilometer run. And I just used to feel so happy doing these long distance races. With long distance races, once you get into a good rhythm, it was important for me being an asthmatic to get that good, comfortable rhythm going while running. Because if I used to try and run fast, I used to get out of breath, and then it was very difficult. But I realized if I was able to run slowly and get a good rhythm while breathing rhythm while running, it used to become like a meditative sort of a feeling in which I was totally immersed into the run. And some people I see, they run with music or headphones on, and that was never appealing to me. I like to, when I'm running, really concentrate into the run and really zone into. So it becomes like a meditative state for me. So I used to feel so peaceful and happy while running these distances. So I did a few half marathons, and then I decided maybe let's try running a full marathon, which was 42 kilometers. So so I trained for a year and did a few half marathons before I decided to attempt a full. And I think this was towards the end of 2016. And I signed up for a race in Gurgaon, and it was, I think, in the winters of 2016, and I was luckily to be able to complete it. Yes, my speed was slow, but I finished the race, and again, the joy and satisfaction I got out of it was like I was so happy, and I think for me, these personal journeys in terms of either running long distances or trekking or climbing, the value that I've gotten from them far outweighs what I was doing in the corporate sector. There's no, I think there the satisfaction was in terms of getting promoted or the money, but it was like a very kind of not a deep level of satisfaction which I've gotten through either running or through being in the mountains. That's very deep, and these are the experiences that I really cherish when I look back at them. So, so that day when I finished the full marathon, which was 42 kilometers, I finished it. I was feeling really good about it. So I remember coming back at home and telling my wife that, hey, I might be able to do a 50K. I feel really good. So 4 months after this finishing this full marathon, I decided to run my own 50-kilometer race. And because in Delhi, there are hardly any races that are longer than full marathons. I think just because of the temperature here, the longest race is just a full marathon. It's very difficult to find races that are longer than those distances in Delhi. So I decided to run my own 50K. And I remember I did it in City Fort here in the ground there, and I had to, I think, run 54 laps of that track to be able to complete the 50K. And again, for me, running round and round, doing 54 laps of a track is like crazy if you think of it. But mentally, I broke it down into smaller sets. And for me, I broke it down into that I had to do 10 sorry, so I broke down the 54 laps into sets of 10. So in my head, I had to do just 5.5 sets. And then I used to really focus on just finishing one set at a time. So that's how I broke down this extremely long run around a small track mentally and physically. Yes, I had been trained running regularly for the last few years. So my body had become more adjusted to taking that toll, but mentally also there was a lot of preparation that went into such a distance. So I used to break down the distance into smaller sets and then focus very hard on each set at a time and not thinking about, oh, that I've got 30 or 40 laps yet to be done. So that's how I tackled it. And again, I was able to do this 50K run solo. And I was so happy, just felt really happy. And so that was my first ultra marathon, which was longer than a full. And so then I was feeling so strong and physically motivated that I decided to, okay, let me push myself for even a bit more. So I signed up for this ultra marathon in Bangalore in 2017. which is called the Bangalore Ultra. And it's the race is in a bamboo forest. Um, so the trail there was, it was a 12.5 kilometer trail. The first 1 kilometer was on a kacha kind of road that led into a bamboo forest, and so the rest 11.5 kilometers were in the bamboo forest. So that was a 12.5 kilometer inside, and then 12.5 kilometers you come out. So one had to do 6 times. So I signed up for the 75 kilometer distance, and so basically the runners had to do it 6 times over to be able to finish the run. And there was a cutoff time of 16 hours to finish this race. So the race started at, this is 2017. So the race started at 6 in the morning, and the cutoff time was to finish it by 10 in the night. So basically, with such long distances, you have to keep moving, and they had aid stations in the middle where you could quickly stop over and get a bite to eat. And so, but other than that, you had to keep moving and hydrating also regularly at these aid stations, and you couldn't rest for long. Like, it was just a few minutes, because if you rest for too long, then the body cools down and motivation also goes. So the key is to keep moving. And so there were three categories in the race: 50, 75, and 100. And I was really amazed to see people who were running 100K. I just couldn't imagine that someone would be able to do that. So yeah, that race really went well, and I was able to finish it in 15 hours, 10 minutes or so. And yeah, and so this was 2017. And then a couple of years later, 2019, I attempted 100K, and that didn't go so well, but I dropped off at the 70K mark. But yeah, so I did a couple of ultra marathons, and since then, running has become a big part of my life. And also, since the last 5, 6 years, while I was doing these races, people sort of informally started to approach me to help them with their fitness journey. So 2016 was the first time that someone approached me to help them with their her fitness level. So, and then people offered, said that, okay, we can pay you as well, and you start to coach us. So it sort of grew from there automatically. And since the last 5 to 6 years, this is what I do. I help people now to regain their own fitness. I think a lot of people have been or are in the similar boat that I was, like being stuck in jobs and not able to get time for their health. So so for me, through this, I really able to combine what I love doing, as well as I'm able to earn a living through it also. So there's no really stress involved for me anymore. I'm in an area which I truly love. And along with that, I really help enjoy. Like, for me, it's not only about money or passion. Definitely, this it is there, but for me, it's also, I look at it as that I'm able to help people to get fitter. So for me, it's also like a service I'm doing. So I feel really happy doing this. So yeah, this is what I do now. I help people getting fitter, and also work with children um, in developing their athletic skills. So yeah, that was, I think, my journey in back from school days till now. So thank you, Ramesh Uncle and Arunima, to inviting me for this, and for giving me this opportunity to share a little about myself. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Pankaj sir. That's a very inspiring journey, and I'm sure you'd had some questions from the participants. If anyone has a question, please raise the hand and unmute yourself. Yes, Mithu ma'am, please unmute.
Okay. Thank you, Pankaj. As you were narrating your story, I really got totally into it and I started visualizing the entire thing. It was told so lucidly and so honestly and so concretely that, yeah, many parts did touch me a lot. Thank you for sharing. Just one very basic question from you can say, a juvenile person who has never learned to run or anything. But
Sure.
what would it actually take for a person at any age, say 40s or 50s, maybe, to really get into this running part for improving the health, and also the
Hmm.
breathing part? That breathing part was really very good. It was really an insight I got. When we
Yeah.
jog and all, we hardly pay any attention to the rhythm of our breathing. Whole thing
Yeah.
goes into just moving your legs and moving forward. So what
Yeah.
would you suggest to people like me who have never run actually? So
Hmm.
how would you suggest that we actually take that first step towards a long run? I'm not talking of jogging or anything, but towards a long run.
Sure. So, thanks, Mithu, for this question. And for someone who's, I would say, just starting, see, running, though, is excellent for our health, especially our cardiovascular stamina. But with running, also, the risk of injury is high because it's a repetitive motion and you're always, the foot lands with quite a lot of force. That's how the motion is. So one has to be a little careful while running. So for someone like you who just wants to start, what I recommend is that you focus on initially on walking briskly. So walk as if you're in a hurry, and then maybe take 10 or 12 steps of a very short distance of slow jogging. So 90% do brisk walking and say 10% of slow jogging, and consolidate on that for a couple of weeks. Then you gradually increase the jogging bit to 20% and get the brisk walk down to 80%. Again, then consolidate on that for another 2 weeks. So slowly increase the proportion of slow jogging and start decreasing the proportion of brisk walking. That's what I would recommend. Very gradually, let your body adjust to it. If you straight away start running without your body because you've not done it before, there'll be high chance of injury. So you have to mix it with brisk walking. So walk in a hurry so that your heart is pumping hard. It's important to keep the heart rate up so that your stamina develops. So walk fast and then slow jog. Walk fast, slow jog. And initially, as I said, keep the jogging portion very less and slowly consolidate, then build, consolidate, build, like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Leena, you had raised the hand earlier. If you have the question still, please
Yeah,
unmute. Yeah.
yeah. Very good evening.
Hi, Lina.
Hello. Sir, my question is first that when I come from a job in the evening, I'm so tired. I don't want to go for a walk,
Yeah,
right? So I don't do any exercises, but it's only that I'm standing at my job for long hours. Uh,
yeah,
so I'm able to burn the calories.
yeah,
Uh, so this is one thing. I don't get that motivation from inside that yes, I have to do
yeah,
walking, I should do exercise. I don't
yeah,
do. I think, but I don't do.
yeah,
So this is first question. Second is, I love my job, but I have my
yeah,
passion that I want to change this in the society.
yeah,
So so this is second thing. How to follow passion when you are already stuck in a job.
yeah, yeah.
So these two queries.
Okay. So, I think the first question is that even for me, who someone who exercises, been exercising regularly for the last 13 years, if you ask me what would be the best time to exercise, if you tell me the evening, my motivation level is low by then, because you already spent so many hours doing XYZ things. So evening is not the best time to exercise. So if you're able to, what I would suggest is to exercise first thing in the morning. So for that, see, all these things are very interconnected. So for you to be able to exercise in the morning, you'll have to sleep early in the night, fairly early. So like for me, I am asleep normally by about 10:30, like never after 11. So I'm asleep by 10:30, and then in the morning, because I have most of my training sessions in the morning, I'm fresh by then. So at least, in my opinion, at least 7 hours, if not ideal is 8 hours, but at least 7 hours of deep sleep, if you're able to get in the night, then you'll feel fresh enough and motivated enough to wake up in the morning and go and exercise. And you can just go for a brisk walk to start with. Even if you do like 20 minutes of walking regularly, it's really, really good for you. It's a very good start. So I would suggest to not try and do it in the evening, because as you said, evening, tired after work, the motivation is very, very less.
Yes.
So the best time, and also evening, our body clock is beginning to slow down and it's moving towards sleep. So best time is to exercise in the morning. So that's what I would suggest. So sleeping fairly early in the night, not beyond 11 o'clock.
So 20 minutes walk, then exercise. Yes?
So yeah, you can, exercise, there has to be some cardiovascular element to it and some strength training to it. So like as we age, both are very important. So cardiovascular for your heart, that can come through brisk walking. So if you walk for say 20 or 25 minutes, even if you're not able to brisk walk right now, just walk at a normal pace for 25 minutes or half an hour, and then do some simple either stretching or little bit of strength based exercises using your own body weight, like simple things like squats, like a chair squat, up and down, sitting off a chair, then standing, simple squats. Very easily you can do. So some strength, or you can get some light dumbbells, 1 or 2 kgs, 2 kgs dumbbells, and do some bicep curls or some shoulder exercises. It doesn't have to be heavy weights. What is more important is to do it regularly so that your body gets used to it. So cardiovascular can come through walking and some form of strength training, which gets our muscles stronger. So yeah. And the other thing is not an easy question to answer, to how to find your passion. So Lina, am I correct to understand that you're not very happy in your job, is it?
I'm very happy at my job.
Okay,
I
you
teach
are very
students. I really love interacting with students. Right?
okay. But what is your passion? Something else?
No. I get new questions every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, can you ask that question again? I didn't fully understand that about your
Okay.
passion bit.
Okay. So sometimes I get a question. Okay, that I should work for poor children. Sometimes I get a question that okay, I should do something for the society, that there should be more trees, less plastic. This thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you mean is that that you're finding it hard to focus on one thing. Is that the like question you have in mind? That
My
is
question
that
is that if I go for my passion, that means I should leave job, which is not a good option,
hmm, hmm.
right? And
Oh,
finding time for passion is becoming difficult for me.
okay. So you have a separate job, is it?
Yes, I'm teaching in a law college, so that
Okay.
is my job.
That is your job. Yeah. But you're passionate about other things. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, to work for the society.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. So I think See, it depends on also. I think for me, I was lucky in that sense that I had financial support of my family.
No,
So I was,
finance is not a problem, sir.
uh,
My salary is not important. It's
oh,
just that I've studied, I have education, so I'm doing the job. Right? It's
yeah.
not financial support is not needed. But I,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think, Lina, if financially you're comfortable and that is not a burden for you, then it's only just a question of making up your mind and taking that leap. Like when I did it, yes, it took me a year to finally quit banking, and because it was a big decision to leave banking and join the non-profit sector. But once I did it, and yes, people back then did uh, make some comments कि अरे वाह वो banking job तो बड़ा अच्छा था, अब ये तुम ये क्या कर रहे हो, and so people did raise their eyebrows a bit. But then that all faded away, and it didn't really matter to me because I was so happy doing, uh, like you said, the passion. I mean, once I was in it, I was very happy, and none of these comments or the society's expect really mattered to me. I was just very happy. So I think it's a matter of just having that faith and taking that leap to make the shift. Once you make the shift within a few months, you won't worry about anything. I mean, you'll feel that you'll be very happy. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Most welcome.
Anyone else from the participants? Anyone else have a question?
If there are no other questions, then I have with me today, uh, right here in this room, a visitor in the ashram. His name is Akio. He's from Hawaii. And he also made an important choice when he was in engineering college. He was very fond of skiing, more fond of skiing than engineering. And he quit engineering college to join something else, which could be combined with skiing. So I thought he might like to share a bit about his choice and how he's feeling about it.
Sure.
Oh, thank you very much.
Just be brief, of course.
Yeah, just be
Right.
brief. Yeah, Hi, thank you so much for your story. Yeah, my passion was skiing. I was raised in the mountains, so when you brought up your love for the mountains, I felt what you were saying. The rarefied air, the clear views, the colors, the smells of the pine, everything brings an entire part of our nature to the surface. But in my case, I was again, it's a small sport. Skiing is not a big sport like cricket or anything. But I was, I really wanted to make the United States ski team. And I also was academically qualified to go to engineering school. So I went to the school that had both University of Denver ski team, and then I could ski enough to maybe make the United States ski team. But I got to the school and the engineering criteria was so strong that there was no way I would have the time to make the US ski team. I barely could do the commitment to the Denver ski team and make it through the college. So one day I decided I'm not going to end this skiing. I'm going to take it as far as I can. And I gave up the engineering. The dean gave me a choice, either be an athlete or be an engineer. You can't do both. And I went to the business school and they welcomed me there and put me into a new field. And I then did make the US ski team. And I was able to go to many mountains all over the world and meet many beautiful people, and also finish my college. And again, that has carried me very well all through life. Yeah. This giving up and taking that leap uh, and going to the next thing is always a drama to us,
Yes,
but always seems to be, even if it's sometimes it's wrong, it still works out because it curves you back to the right thing. So
yes.
thank you for
Thank
listening.
you for sharing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to meet you.
Same here. Thank you.
So I think since time is getting on, what I'll do is take a few minutes and wind up. Let me first thank Pankaj for sharing his personal journey with such honesty and frankness that he really could make an important point.
Thank
And
you.
that's always better if it is done through the his life history of an individual. You can talk in general about many things, but if you want to really make a point, wrap it up in a real person's life history. And that's what he has done, although it's not always easy to share uh, one's journey in such a way, show both these weak points and then how he recovered from it. Now, let me start with some of the questions that were asked towards the end. Now, here is a person who has a passion for running and who discovered it around the age of 30. I mean, he knew that he's a good sports person, but then he had a time to make a switch around age 30. Now, people who have been asking, some of the people who asked him questions are in their 50s, and their passions are not necessarily running. And therefore, uh, one has to sort of get from it the essence and not try to translate into how they can run and how they can run as fast as he can. And as a person from the field of yoga, what I would say is that even from before it comes to a brisk walk and then a bit of running, what is important is to first learn to relax the muscles. And the next thing is to improve the flexibility of the body. And these are two things that the yoga postures do much better than any other exercise. So the starting point should be relaxation, improving the flexibility through stretches, and then going on to a brisk walk and a run if it suits the person. And certainly people in their 50s should not probably run at all for various reasons, which I'll not go into, medical reasons. So that's not the stage to start running. That is one thing. And if the person wants to stick to just yogic practices, even that is fine. The person need not go to any other exercise at all, uh, especially those exercises in which an injury is likely. You must have heard of many sports injury centers. Have you ever heard of a yoga injury center? You don't, because if you do it properly, you can't injure yourself. And that is important. Now, coming to some of the points which might be a little haphazard, because I was just going on noting as he spoke. One was that he was, as a child, he had bronchial asthma, and yet he was fond of sprinting, and he could combine both. Now, this is an important lesson. Sometimes we take a problem like asthma as something which would limit our possibilities, but then it need not be a limitation. One can overcome it. And also, it has a tendency to improve with age. Those who have childhood asthma generally get better as they get older. I'm sure Pankaj is much better now. At least that problem doesn't trouble him anymore, in spite of having smoked for many years. So that is one point that I thought I could make. Then, another things in our system of education, while in school, some amount of sports were necessary and there was scope for sprints. Once college started, fitness took a backseat and running and all that stopped, and he gained weight. I'm not saying that in college also sports should continue in a big way, but during school, there should have been enough motivation built in to continue with sports and continue with taking care of your body. Because the body is a basic instrument that is going to be used for all our life. It is not just for school. School is the training ground, and apparently, I mean, that training is not good enough for the person to develop a love for exercise. And one reason, perhaps, is what one cardiologist, Dean Ornish, once has pointed out, that in school, very often, going around the playfield is a sort of a sort of punishment. So, as a punishment, the child is told to go around the field 5 times. So, the child grows up with the impression that exercise is a form of punishment, not something which one can enjoy. Even those who don't have a passion, as much of a passion as Pankaj has, can enjoy exercise, because now we know that while we take exercise, we release endorphins in the brain, and they are a feel-good hormone. So one feels good when one takes exercise. Then another thing which came out in a subtle way was the parental pressure to take one's career in a certain direction. Luckily, he broke through it when he was around 30. Not many always can, and not many can afford to. And this is something which is important for parents to understand, to let the child follow his passion, and there is always scope for it. The child may make less money, but then life can be more enjoyable. About smoking, he shared very frankly that at a point he went up to 20 cigarettes a day, and still and made many efforts to give up, and finally succeeded on the 15th of August 2010, an auspicious day, not only because it's India's Independence Day, but it's also Sri Aurobindo's birthday. So on an auspicious day, he succeeded in finally quitting. Now, being an ex-smoker is very creditable. It is something which deserves great respect, because smoking is one of those addictions which is extremely difficult to give up, and that's why he's not the only one. So many try several times and fail. This is a problem that we talked about in some detail in a course that we had on this very channel, the Yes, as a part of the Yes project in the course Yes.04. So if you go to the class recordings of Yes.04 theory, one of the sessions is on why not, why smoke, means why people start smoking, why not to smoke, why one should not smoke, and how to quit. So under that title, you'll find a class in Yes.04 theory class recordings. One can roughly divide Pankaj's life into pre-30 and post-30. That is the life he had before the age of 30 and after about 30. And they have been quite different. And obviously, the way he has lived his life after 30 has been far more rewarding and satisfying. The first experience he had of a closer view of the Everest in 2011, he described as a magical, life-changing experience. One could also call it a spiritual experience, because it has been a common sort of a way so many have looked at that when they go to a place with that type of pristine natural beauty, they are able to be in touch with the divine, because those are places which have not yet been spoilt by man. And therefore, you get a sort of a direct touch of the divine, and therefore it's actually a spiritual experience. Another thing that he brought out was that when he started with this job with Teach for India, where he was teaching 2-year-old children, the job was more challenging than in the bank, more demanding than the bank job. And therefore, it is not how hard you have to work or how much challenge there is which makes a person dislike a job. He liked it because not only because he found it more interesting, but because it involved giving. He was giving what he had to children who seemed to need it and appreciate it. So it was the joy of giving, and that's why it was so rewarding and so satisfying. All this passion is sports, not necessarily teaching 2-year-olds, but still he found it very rewarding, because anything where we are able to give something of ourselves in a selfless manner is rewarding. And therefore, although in whatever he has done after that, the income has been much less, he has still been a much happier person. So it's not money that makes us happier. It's not the status the job has which makes us happier. And it's not the challenge and the demand of the job that makes us unhappy. There are other more subtle, intangible factors that enter it. And this again is important for parents to understand, because they're always trying for the child to get into a career that will be both prestigious and paying. And that not necessarily the best thing for the child. Although they love the child, they want the child to be happy, but they're not very clear about where happiness can be found. And that is what makes all the difference. And of course, for anybody to understand somebody else's happiness is also not always very easy. And that's why they say one half of the world doesn't understand the happiness of the other half. What is it that makes the other half happy? Especially when that other half happens to be the type who will enjoy giving more than getting, the types who has a certain passion which is so strong that instead of getting paid for it, the person will not mind if he's made to pay something, be allowed to do it. That is what passion is about. And that is the type of passion Pankaj has for running. And that's what has uh, made him enjoy his life after 30. And he has been able to combine it with a marriage, with having children, and everything. And yet be a much happier and healthier person. And you can see, as he's not overweight, he's in the pink of health. And that's all happened because he realized it quite early and could make a switch early in life. And so far as smoking is concerned, to smoke and then to give it up is far more creditable than never to have smoked at all. Therefore, all the credit to him for overcoming this extremely strong and difficult addiction to give up. I'm sure this will be a very inspiring talk. Before I end, I just read out a few lines from Sri Aurobindo, where he has talked about physical activity in schools. And apart from fitness, which of course is understandable, one thing which he has, one or two things which he has emphasized are the sportsman spirit and a few other things, that also personal qualities that develop best through games and sports. And I think that's again important to understand, because games and sports are not only for fitness. Although fitness in itself is important, the bodily instrument, if it performs better, we'll be able to do whatever we do in life much better. Because after all, in whatever we do, we use the body mind complex. That is the instrument that we have for all action in the world. And the two go together. This is again a common misunderstanding. If the child spends too much time on fitness, then the child will not have enough time for academics. But in fact, a child who spends enough time to stay fit, not necessarily going for competitive sports, that again, not for everybody, but to stay fit, also does better in academics. But anyway, apart from improving the instrument, the body mind complex, in which games and sports help, Sri Aurobindo says here, more important than that, but of a higher import, which means of a higher importance, greater importance than just staying fit, but of a higher import than the foundation, that is the foundation, the material base that we have, however necessary, of health, strength, and fitness of the body, is the development of discipline and morale and sound and strong character, towards which these activities can help. There are many sports which are of the utmost value towards this end, because they help to form and even necessitate the qualities of courage, hardihood. Just sort of reading it slowly, if you pay attention to each word, you'll realize that all these qualities also develop through games and sports. Courage, hardihood, energetic action, and initiative or call for skill, steadiness of will or rapid decision and action, the perception of what is to be done in an emergency, and dexterity in doing it. All this also comes through sports. And then he goes on to what we generally call the sportsman spirit, after a few lines. Another invaluable result of these activities is the growth of what has been called the sporting spirit. That includes good humor and tolerance and consideration for all, right attitude and friendliness to competitors and rivals, self-control and scrupulous observance of the laws of the game, fair game and avoidance of the use of foul means, an equal acceptance of victory or defeat without bad humor, resentment, or ill will towards successful competitors, loyal acceptance of the decisions of the appointed judge, umpire, or referee. These qualities have their value for life in general, and not only for sport, but the help that sports can give to their development is direct and invaluable. So that was Sri Aurobindo writing in 1949. So how much our schools have to learn from all this, you can imagine. And Pankaj looks extremely pleased with all this, because he knows that there are several reasons why what he's trying to inspire children to do, young people to do, is important. Pankaj, you want to say anything? The last word?
Just thank you, Uncle, just wanted to express my gratitude to be able to share a bit about myself. And yeah, I think for me, it's I'm deeply passionate about what I do, and money is okay. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less. It's fine. But just that opportunity of waking up every day and doing something that I really enjoy, that makes me really happy. So thank you so much for this giving me this opportunity to share a little bit about myself. Yeah, thank you.
Just to share with the audience, he's calling me uncle because he and my daughter went to the same school, and I ended up being friendly with his parents because of meeting in the parent teacher association meetings. And his mother is a well-known children's writer, Anupa Lal.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Pankaj sir, for sharing your time and, of course, sharing your journey with all of us. Very inspiring, truly. I thank all the participants for being with us today. We can close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.